And welcome to Impact 2025. I continue a conversation where we talk about all different types of topics from race, religion, what's going on in our communities, current events, politics, everything that you can talk about. This is that opportunity to have that continuing conversation. And as always, I like to remind people and invite people to type your questions and your comments into the comments section so that you can be a part of the conversation. It's not just me talking, but it's you as well putting in your comments. What do you like? What do you dislike about what I'm saying? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? Do you have any other points to add? Is there anything that I missed? Whatever you feel like typing into the comment section, we will then put it up on the screen and it will be a part of the conversation. And so feel free. This is your opportunity to make sure that you get your opinions across. Can't say your voice is heard because you won't hear your voice, but we will see what you typed. And so you can put that in there. As always, we want to remind people about our different offerings that we have. On Thursdays at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we have a time of Bible study. It's called Thursday Thirst. It's our weekly Bible study. You can join us to go deep, have a deeper understanding into the Bible and the Word of God. On Sundays, we have worship service at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. That's Facebook, YouTube, and in person at the address that's on the screen. Please feel free to join us if you're in the area. If not, join us on Facebook or YouTube, 10 o'clock. And then on Tuesdays, today, we have a time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. Our ministry, everybody in our ministry is encouraged to pray from 7 to 7, in between the time of 7 to 7:45, not from 7 to 7:45. And so you can pray with us. You can be in prayer with the people in the ministry at 7 to 7:45. So whether you take 1 minute to 5 minutes and pray in between that time, whether you pray for the whole entire time, at some point in that time, if you're praying at the same time that we are praying. And so we're all praying together. And so just encourage you to be able to pray with us. And of course, at 8 o'clock on Tuesdays, we have Impact. And that's where you are now. It's your opportunity to discuss and join in conversation. So today, the 11th of November, we have seen some good things happen. If you are a federal employee, a federal worker, it looks like the government is going back to work. And so all the people who were furloughed, all the people who were not getting paid, it looks like there will be some resolution to that. The votes were going on and things like that. So that's a good thing to highlight. Not really what we're talking about today. It is Veterans Day. So for all the veterans out there, we would like to thank you for your service. Remember people who have been veterans. A lot of people who have put their lives out there in service of the military, the different branches, and who have served. And so I'd like to say thank you to all of you. That's also, however, not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is a topic that a lot of people like to talk about. Money. But we're not talking about how we have money. We're talking about the lack thereof and some of the difficulties that's going on with money. And we also are really kind of getting into perspectives and how people have different perspectives when it comes to money. Listening to a guy today, because I stay in the financial news and kind of stay up on all of that. So listening to a guy there, and big time. He was one of the secretaries in the United States government, and so he was talking about the fact that they were asking him questions. They were saying, people feel like affordability is down. The prices are up and affordability is down. And the guy said, prices really aren't up. That was his claim. He said, and affordability is not up. I mean, not down, because look at gas prices. It's like gas prices are $2.70. Really, they're around $3.15 for the national average. But he said $2.70, and he said, and eventually the gas prices will get down close to $2. He said because of that, people can afford. and affordability is up. Now, he didn't talk about mortgages. He didn't talk about rent. He didn't talk about food costs. He didn't talk about any of the other stuff. And the reason was because he was saying because gas is down, because so many things are connected to gas, that affordability has to be okay. You feel that when you're in your home and you don't have to, you can have a little bit less of a gas bill to heat your homes this winter. And you can feel that when you're in your cars and it doesn't cost you as much to fill up your tanks. Number one problem with that is some people, many people, they don't use gas on a regular basis. Heat their homes, usually electricity costs, and the cost of energy has shot up significantly. That hasn't gone down, and it's not going down because of the change in gas. Many people don't use cars. You live in a big city, or you live in a city or a suburb that has outstanding public transportation. You really don't need a car. You don't have to have a car. I know people, and I live in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, as most of you who are listening, know or live. You really need a car to be able to function in that central Virginia area. Because you got Richmond, and you got Hanover, you got Henrico, so you got the counties, the Tri-Cities, as they call it, area, and you got to maneuver. Our public transportation is not going to get you to where you want to go. It'll get you close, but then you have to do a lot of walking or a lot of other little maneuvering to get there. And I know people who don't have cars, who don't drive, who don't do any of that. And this is a place where you really need it. And I hope on the word need. It's not an absolute necessity because you got the people who can do it without it, but you need it because it's hard, very hard to survive. It's not one of these places like New York City where you don't need a car. You can get wherever you want to go. Or Chicago where you don't need a car. You got transportation. But here you really need a car. It's not easy to do. And it's people who don't have it. And so when you're coming into perspective and you're saying things like, all right, everything's affordable because gas is good, then you're not taking into account all the people who are not dealing with that. Why am I saying this? Why is that important? Why is that perspective? Because I think what happens right now is that a lot of people are complaining about some things. A lot of people are crying out about some things. And a lot of us are ignoring it because we don't see their perspective. One of the biggest things that's going on right now that to talk about when it comes to money and finance is that there's, we've talked about this here before, there's two Americas. There are those who got a lot of money. That's the upper middle class and higher. And then there's those who don't. That's middle class and lower. And if you're in that upper middle class, you got a nice job and you're making six figures or more, you're probably doing good and you're feeling real good right now out here. Those are people who are traveling, buying all the cars, buying luxury goods. They're talking about, spending is not down. It's because those folk, they get it. Those who six figures or lower, not buying all the cars. Seeing that cars are almost $50,000 or more now. A little $20,000. They said the $20,000 brand new car vehicle is gone. Not buying new houses because of the $500,000 it's almost at $500,000 for an entry level home. And even if you can get something a little cheaper, you're still going to pay 6% on your mortgage. Energy costs sky high, so it's hard to even afford. You can get a free house. Parents can give you a house. You can win the lottery and get a house, something like that. And you get a house, but those utility bills are going to eat you up. Food costs, we know where that is. Food costs continuously are going up, and then they have shrinkflation, where it's not even the cost of the food that's going up. It is you used to get 12 donuts in your box, and now you get 10. Or your bag of chips used to be, pretty hefty. You open it up and you got a lot of chips. Now you open it up and you got a lot of air. And so little things like that. But it's perspective. It's perspective. And so if you don't realize it and you don't notice it, and you hear people talking about the struggles that they're having, and you don't understand it because you're not in the same ballpark. You may be in that upper middle class and you don't understand what's going on with the lower middle class. You may be out here driving cars and realizing that gas is cheaper. And then other people who don't drive cars are sitting back saying, That doesn't affect me at all. My struggle is still my struggle. You may be sitting out here in a situation where you get promotions after promotions and you're doing well, where somebody else who was doing well and has based their lifestyle on whatever, amount of money that they were getting, have been sliced out and moved out by AI, or sliced out and moved out by the government cutting back. And now you don't realize their situation. I think that what's important is, what I'm getting at is that when it comes to money, when it comes to what people need and the resources that's going on, and the tough times and the struggles that some people are saying that they have right now, you have to be able to understand that everybody's situation isn't the same, that people's situations aren't similar. We have people who come here who have full-time jobs, who'll come by and say, well, I'm struggling with food. We don't have food for the house. And you're just like, what? I don't understand how you don't have food. You got a job. Because you got to understand how their money is rolling, how their situation is rolling, what they have going on. And so if you have money, but you're only talking to other people with money, you may not understand what the real economy is, they say, or what the real relationship is that they're having out here in the world. And so why do I say that? Because as the church, as people who are supposed to be, people who others look towards, because they always look towards the church. And if we're not understanding what's going on in other people's communities and we're not listening to them, then we're not going to be able to understand what they're having to say in their perspective. We got people who come here all the time and they're talking about, their issues, and it may be a struggle out here. If you don't understand it because you're thinking about gas, you're like, well, gas is cheaper. Then you're not going to understand what struggles they're going through, and not going to be able to help them. Not going to be able to respect their struggle. If you're sitting here talking about the fact that, but people are getting promotions out here, and they got inflation when it comes to your income. So they got income inflation going up as well as regular inflation. So everybody should be fine. But these people, you have somebody who doesn't make six figures. I'm making $80,000, and you think that, $80,000 is a lot. Well, it's not a lot, depending on where you live, how many kids you got, how many dependents you got. Or somebody making 60 or 50 or 40. It gets, So if you're sitting here thinking about your situation and you don't understand what's going on with them, you're not going to be able to help or respect and understand their situation. And that's a lot of what's going on right now. Comment: if you don't have money, the drop in the cost of gas will not benefit you. It will benefit those who have money. Absolutely. And I think that's what's missing too. If you don't have any money, and there's two types that don't have any money. That's perfect. There's those who don't have a job and don't have any money. You ain't got no money. You ain't got nothing coming in. You ain't got no money. Changing gas prices don't mean nothing. Because you ain't got no money. It don't matter. Gas could be $1,000. Gas could be $0. It don't matter. You ain't got no money. You can't purchase it no matter what it is. But the second kind is those who have a job and have income, or maybe not even have a job, but you got income. You can be getting a check for whatever reason, whether it be retirement, whether it can be a disability check or something else like that. But you don't have any extra money. All your money basically is accounted for. Then you're still in the same situation. You don't have any money, and so a drop in gas that could do you no good. You're like, well, if it's dropping gas, you might have a little bit more money. No, you may not. But that's the thing. You got people out here who are running around saying things like, everything's okay. It's not that bad. Inflation isn't real, or your financial struggles aren't, real. Or you have people, and we'll kind of take it political a little bit, who will sit back and say, well, no big deal about SNAP benefits and other things. We had a government shutdown. Let's fund it at 60%. We don't want to fund all of that money. We don't, or they'll say we need to cut these programs and put some work requirements on them, or cut them because, we don't know who's getting the food and blah, 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 whatever. You don't understand their perspective. You're not with these people. You don't understand or listen or empathize or sympathize or hear what they're doing. And so when you got people who are in, just different financial situations, we have to be able to listen and understand. And I think that's some of the problems with that's one of the vacuums and the problems with leadership that we have right now throughout the country. You got a bunch of people who don't understand. I always laugh at these folk, and they get on my last nerves. And I'll tell you, the vice president right now is one of them. Not to make it political, but it is. This dude goes around talking about the fact that he grew up in a tough situation, and his mom was on food stamps and benefits, and he was able to rise up and blah 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 and go into the military, and now he's vice president. So when somebody tells me that they grew up in a rough situation, I empathize. I say, that's crazy, that's rough. But when somebody tells me that they understand the dynamics and the economics of the struggle, having to be on public assistance or something like that, and you understand that because you were a kid when your parents did it, or your grandparents or whoever, no, that's laughable. You don't understand nothing. And so for the vice president, when he talks about that, you don't understand anything. I mean, at the most, yes, you saw a little bit of what your mother was doing, and you may have experienced some stuff. Maybe you went to a food bank or something like that with your mom, but you have no clue what it means to be an adult to go through that struggle, how to manage your funds, how to what it does to your psyche when you have to go to these different places, what it does to your pride sometimes when you have to change your levels of how you thought yourself to be and humble yourself in order to go and take assistance. If you haven't done that as an adult, you have no clue what you're talking about. And I think that's what we have as the problem sometimes. We have a lot of people who are looking from the outside talking about, oh yeah, my parents struggle, so I know about the struggle. You don't know about the struggle because you never went through the struggle as an adult. You know what the kid struggle is. And that is significant. No doubt. I don't want to downplay that at all because some kids go through some stuff, but it is different to be in an adult struggle. So if you've never had to take benefits as an adult, you never had to be on unemployment as an adult, you never had to take SNAP as an adult, and you come out here and you want to talk about people that you understand the struggle that other folks go through, you don't. You can't. You don't. And so the best that you can do is talk to others and do things like that. And I think that's what we have to do as a church and as Christians. We have to make sure that we're listening to others. Because if you haven't done it, if you have done it, then you know about it and you still need to listen. But if you haven't done it, you got to stop talking and listen. And do not tell anybody. I understand because with my mom, when I was young, my mom used to, come on. The issues is there are haves and have-nots. Yes, you either have money or you don't, and that's the bigger problem right now. You still see all these crazy car commercials with these luxury cars and luxury vehicles, and you're like, well, who can afford to get this $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 car? Because there's these haves and there are have-nots, and it's the haves and the have-nots isn't all right. I have because I'm super wealthy and I'm a noble person, and the have-nots are poor people who don't have jobs. That no. A have mean you're upper middle class, and then the have-nots are lower middle class. The have is I make $200,000 a year, and the have-not is I make $90,000 a year. It's crazy that it's that you still got a bunch of money that you're making, but you can't afford to live. It's a different ball game now. There's so many people who are the have-nots because the divide has gotten so big. And and so I think that's where we have to come to when it comes to this money and this have and have-nots. It is our responsibility as people, whether you are a have or a have-not, it doesn't matter. If you are in the church, if you're trying to help others, if you're going to call yourselves, if we're going to call ourselves Christians, then what our responsibility is to listen to people's struggle, because we can't help them if we're not listening. And I think that's what's going on. A lot of this debate and conversation about whether or not affordability is high, whether or not inflation is high. The conversation should not be whether or not, or how these people feel, or whether it's real or whether it's not. It is what's going on with you. You got a need. Let me listen to your need. Let me listen to what you have going on, and let me not tell you more so what's going on. You know, it would be one thing. You could tell people about jobs and stuff like that. Like, for example, if there was a bunch of jobs open, and you can tell people, hey, there's a bunch of jobs open. There's really not a struggle in the job market. You could say that. That makes sense. It's not true. That's not what's going on right now, but you could say something like that. But you can't tell people that you can afford to live right now. You can't tell people who are struggling or who feel like they don't have enough. You can't just sit back and say, well, you do have enough. Now, we'll say this, because pretty much we're getting close to our time. I will say this. What I found out this past week with some people who came in here, one of the first things that we talk about is your relationships, and we have a lot of people who come to the church and come to one of our programs, transitional housing program, and the number one thing is where's your family? And a lot of the number one thing I hear is, oh, I don't mess with my family no more, or oh, I'm not really connected to my family anymore. And some people have good, legitimate reasons for why they're not connected to their family. Some people's families are, rough, but some people don't. And even if you do, whether you do or whether you don't, if you don't have family, then you need to have a substitute. Even if you do have family, it's better to have two families. And so you have people who don't have a family to fall back on when things go bad. Then maybe they have a church family. Maybe they have a community of friends that they hang out with that can all help each other. We got to be able to get together. And so, people who don't have a church family, or you're missing out on one of the families that you should have. And so we have a lot of people who come in and they've been struggling. And one of the main reasons that they're struggling is because they have a struggle. But the second reason is because you don't have a family. And you should have a family and a church family and things like that. And I think that's what we got to realize and remind people. You got to have a group. Even when you see people who are in homeless camps or homeless groups, you'll see them grouped together and they rely on one another because they have their family. Like if you have nothing and you can understand that concept, when you have a little bit of something, you should still be able to understand that concept. And I think that's what's getting a lot of folk in trouble. And that is what we have to remind people as a church. Like, you got to be connected to somebody other than yourself. You can't do this alone. First and foremost, you should get together. First and foremost, you need to get your faith right and get together with God. But you also need to get together and have a family. Because as soon as you get together with God and you realize that we are all family, then you can understand and try to pull people together as your family members. Have your church family. Have people who you're in relationship with. And then maybe amend some of those problems that you have with your real family, if you can. Again, I realize some families got some terrible folk. Notice how quickly some who recently lost their jobs went into foreclosure. Yeah, and that's one of the things that surprises me so much. And it does. It surprises me. And that's why I can sit back and say what I'm saying today as far as like, look, we got to listen. It surprises me how quickly people can lose a job or a paycheck. And the next thing you know, they're in the food line at the food bank. Or the next thing you know, they've lost their house. Like, the concept of living paycheck to paycheck, to me, especially when people make, good money, or they have, good, if you got a government job, you're usually making pretty good money. It's when I say pretty good money, it's going to be better than working, just at minimum wage. You're not doing that. Even the federal minimum wage is way higher than the regular minimum wage. And so, you're usually doing good money. And it sometimes it shocks me how quickly, you miss one paycheck and boom, you're in foreclosure. Or you lose your job and then immediately, boom, you're in foreclosure. And that's, some people living above their means, but some people they're living at their means, and it's just a struggle. And so for me, as a person who understands that, it would be ignorant of me to sit back and be like, well, I'm not listening to them. They're not really struggling. They're just doing something crazy. Their affordability, they do have affordability. They just messed up. That would be crazy because I don't know their situation. And so just like I'm saying to everyone else, when we're looking at our leaders and things, they have to start listening to folks because you don't understand their situation. I understand that about myself. I got to listen to you because I don't understand your situation. and I can admit it. I can sit back and be like, I don't understand how one paycheck turns puts you in such a bad situation. But I don't know what you got going on. But I do know that you need some help. And I got to see what I can do to do so. And I think so that's it. That's the number one thing today is there has been a discussion, and it's crazy. It's a discussion right now about whether or not people are really struggling or not. All these people who are saying, well, affordability, or I feel like I can't, make it. And there's other folk now who are saying, man, that's fake. But it's made up. But you're watching that on TV, but out here, people are really doing fine. I don't know what the next man is doing or the next woman is doing, but I know if you say that you're struggling, I need to listen. And if you are struggling for real, I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm earnestly listening to it. I need to try to help you out. Don't just call you a liar. How can we help people if we think that everybody out there is faking? All right. Well, that's it. That's it. Let's just listen, folks. Let's listen. Let's make sure we're listening so we can help. All right. That's it. I want to remind people about the different things that we have going on. So, of course, on Thursday, we have Thursday Thirst, our weekly Bible study. Please join us for that. That is the time to really get into the Bible. On Sundays, we have our time of worship service, 10 a.m. And then, of course, on Tuesdays, we have that time of prayer from 7 to 7:45. I like this comment. It's like the song "Lean on Me." Lean on me. Yes, we got to be able to lean on one another, as or like that common thing they say. Well, am I my brother's keeper? Yeah, man, you are. We should be helping each other out. We lean on me, and I like that because you're hitting right on it. That's where it is. That's where we're at. We got to listen to each other and look. We're in this together, y'all. We are. We're all in this together. Regardless if you think that things are going crazy, like I do, or you think that things are all sweet. We're in this together. And if somebody comes up to you and they say that it's crazy, then it is what it is. All right. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for everybody coming. This has been Impact 2025. We will be here again next week. Have a good one.